Hi and welcome to this video tutorial on Flash. This is the continuation of a previous video. We are going to be creating a web animation using Flash, and this is based upon a Photoshop file that we've already created. So we've created the layers that we're going to be animating in Photoshop, and you can see how to do that on the previous video preparing a document for Flash in Photoshop. Okay, so first of all we need to open that Photoshop file, and you can see this is what the menu that you can see when you open Flash, and we want to open that Photoshop file in this. So if we just click over here and open, and we're looking for that Photoshop file which is right there, and you can see that it's on my desktop, but it's not highlighted. I can't select it currently. I need to make it so that I can select that. So if I just go down to this drop down window here, select all files, and you can see that that makes all files available for open. I can click on that Photoshop file. I know it's a Photoshop file because it has the PSD at the end of it, and I can click open, and that'll open up in Flash for me. Okay. These are all the layers that I created in Photoshop, and I want to make sure that they're all checked. Okay, convert to Flash layers, and what I want to also make sure is that this option here, set stage size to same size as Photoshop canvas, is checked. When I'm happy with that, I can click OK. And there is my file. Okay, currently it's a little bit too big for the window, so I can reduce that. If I use this drop down menu here, and I think that's above the frame right now, but the option is fit in window. If I click on that, and then I'll be able to see the whole thing. Okay, first of all, the area that the image that we are animating sits upon is referred to as the canvas. So this is the canvas up here. Over here we have all the panels that we can use to create our animation, and down the bottom we have the timeline. You can see that all the layers that we created in that Photoshop file are down here in their own layers along the timeline. Each one of those layers has its own, each one of those layers has its own timeline. Okay. Layer 1 is another layer that Flash has automatically added, so I'm just going to delete that by right clicking and hitting delete layers. We don't need that anymore. Okay, you can also see that each layer is represented by a different color. Alright, and when I click on each layer, it'll be represented by a blue box. So I've just selected the O layer, and that letter O is surrounded by a blue box. We also have the option here of turning those layers on and off to make them visible or invisible. So if I hit that I option down there, notice that the letter O will disappear. We can't see it. It's still available, but I've just turned it off to make it invisible. We can also lock layers. So if I was to lock that letter O and try and move it, it's not going to let me. Okay. So we want to unlock that. And we can lock the Hollywood layer, the background layer, because we don't want that to move over the course of our animation. It's also good to be able to save your file, so if you don't lose it, and get in the habit of saving it as you go. And you can do that just by selecting File, Save, or Save As. If you do it for the first time, it'll bring up this window which will allow you to name your file. It'll be saved as a Flash file, so you'll be able to continue working on it, and I'm just going to save that to my desktop. From now on, if I just get in the habit of hitting Command and S, that's just a keyboard shortcut that'll save my file to where I've just placed it. Okay, so down the bottom of the window here we have the timeline. Like I described before, it has all the layers that we've created in Photoshop. Along this timeline you'll see all these numbers. Each one of these numbers represents a frame. Any film or animation is set at 24 frames per second. So if we go up to this frame here, that's 1 second of footage. You can see that represented down the bottom there and tells us that the film's going to run at 24 frames per second, and currently we have no frames selected, so our film goes for 0 seconds. We want our film to go for 10 seconds, so that would be 24 times 10, which will bring us up to frame 240. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to find frame 240, which is there. I want to create my Hollywood background layer up to frame 240, so it runs for 10 seconds. So I'm just going to highlight that layer there by clicking it. I'll right click that layer and I want to insert frame. Okay, you can see that now frames have been created all the way up to frame 240 in that layer. If I move this red line, which is the playhead, if I move it over frame 1, I still have all those other layers present, but after frame 1, I've only got that background layer. And if I was to play it, I can play it by pressing the little playhead down the bottom of the interface here. If I play that, it'll run for 10 seconds, but nothing is happening. So we're going to go back and animate all those other letters. Okay, next we will animate the letters of the Hollywood sign that we created in different layers in Photoshop. So the purpose of this ad, we're going to make it look like the Hollywood sign is falling apart and Hollywood is destroyed as a result of piracy. So let's start animating these letters. I'll show you how to do one of the letters, and then you can go ahead and do the other two by yourself. This animation in Flash is what they call tweening. All right. So what it is we show Flash where the animation starts and where it stops, and then in between, Flash will do all the movement for us. So it's called tweening. So what we want to do is we want to create a keyframe. Sorry, we'll create a frame at frame 60. All right. We'll insert a frame there. So that's the W will be on the screen for that length of time. Okay. Let's start the animation at frame 20. Okay. So the animation the animation will start, the W will start moving at frame 20 and it'll finish its movement at frame 60. So here we are going to, frame 20, we're going to insert a keyframe. Okay, a keyframe is a frame where something happens. In this case, the animation is going to start. I will click somewhere inside those frames between frame 20 and frame 60, right click, and we want to create a motion tween. Okay, so this will pop up saying that we need to convert the W to a symbol, and we want to do that, so we'll click OK. I'm going to move the playhead over to frame 60 because that's where I want the movement to end. Okay, and then I will move that W. I'm going to want it to fall down the hill, so I'm just going to drag it down the hill. Okay. What you'll see there is a line with a number of dots, and that's every frame. So in there, if you would count those dots, that would be 40 dots, as like in reference to those 40 frames that we've just created. Okay, if I now grab the playhead and drag it, you'll see that movement that we've created. But it's a bit boring. All right, the W is just kind of sliding down the page. We want it to look like it's tumbling off the hill. So I'm going to give it a twist as well. So making sure that the playhead is at frame 60, I want to open my toolbar, which is here. I want to grab the free transform tool, click on that, and you'll see that I can now adjust this W. I'm going to rotate it to make it look like it is fallen off the sign. Okay, so I'm happy with that movement. But if I was to go ahead and play my film, the W falls, and from then on, from shot 60, it disappears. So I want to, based upon where it lands, complete the rest of those frames up until shot 240, where the W has ended. So if I insert a frame there, that W will stay like that for the rest of the film. I could have also done that. I'll just Command Z to get out of that. If I wanted to do that manually, I can hold down the Shift key and drag the end of my film all the way up to frame 240. And then if I go back to the start of my film, and I can watch that movement. Okay, so I have added animations for the letters L and the O in my film. And I've kind of staggered them a little bit so the animations happen at the same time. So if I now play my film, you'll see, just make sure that this fits in the window, you'll see the W falling off, the O will fall over and slide down the hill, and the L's just kind of topple backwards a little bit. I've kept that O going for a long time just for dramatic effect. Okay, next we will look at how to make a fade. Okay, so to do that, let's just start off at the start. Let's put a fade from black in at the start of the film. So to do that, what I'll do is create a new layer. I will call it fade, and I want to make sure that that is in the top layer so it's over the top of all the other layers. Okay, I will now grab the rectangle tool like this and create a box that covers the entire canvas. That's blue. I don't want blue, I want black. Let's try that again. Let's get that, make sure that that color is black, and create a box that covers the entire canvas. Okay, so you'll see there down on the timeline that box has been created for all 240 frames. But I don't want it to go for 240 frames, I just want it to go for a brief period at the start of the film. Let's chop it off at frame 10, insert a keyframe there. We'll select all of those frames. I just double click to select all of those frames, and we will just clear those frames. Or we can delete them altogether. Alright, so here we want to, first of all, in order to be able to animate this, I will create a motion tween that will turn my rectangular box into a symbol, which allows me to animate it. I want to drag the playhead to the last frame of that tween. Okay, this is where we need to make things a little bit tricky. I need to select my box with the selection tool, and I'm going to go over here to the properties window. I need to change that to a graphic. I need to change this style to alpha, and this will allow me to create a transparency. So I want to drag that all the way down to 0, and by doing that, this will create a gradual fade at the start of my film. Alright, so once you know how to fade, this will allow us to fade in all the letters, and I want these to fade in gradually, one by one. So what I've got here is, if we just turn off that fade for a second, don't let piracy destroy the industry, and they are all separate layers, and I want them to come in individually and gradually. Okay, so if I want to create all of those layers up until the end of my film, and I can do that by holding down the Command key. I might as well introduce the logo as well. I can do that for all of those boxes. So now all of those words are all the way to the end of my film. Okay. I want the don't let to come in first. Let's just turn these off so they don't confuse matters. And I want don't let to come in at about frame 100. So I'll create a keyframe there. I want it to fade in from frame 100 to frame 110. So I'll insert a keyframe there. I'm going to create a motion tween for that space in between, convert that to a symbol, drag the playhead over to the end of that motion tween, And I want to do the same thing that I did to my fade box. I'm going to select that symbol. I'm going to change it to a graphic. I'm going to change the color effect to alpha, and I'm going to make that 0. But the thing is, I've now faded that out when I want it to fade in. Okay, so what I can do is just right click anywhere on that motion tween and select reverse keyframes. Okay, so when I play it, that's going to fade in. We've still got these frames here at the start, so I need to select those and right click and select clear frames. So if we now go back to the start and we play it, don't let will fade in and will stay for the remainder of the clip. Okay, I am going to do that for the other words so they all come in gradually. Okay, so I've done that. I've animated all the different layers and I've staggered them so they'll come in gradually. So you can see the text starting to move, then the text come in one by one, and I've let the logo and website just fade in a little bit more gently at the end there. So I've that motion tween to fade that in. I've created over a bigger number of frames, over 30 frames, whereas these ones are only over 10 frames. And that's what it should look like on your timeline. Okay, so I'm happy with that animation. All I need to do now is publish it. If I go up to File, Publish, this will publish my film as a Flash file, which is great if you want to put it online. But we want to export ours as a movie so we can watch it just on a computer screen. So I will go up to Export, Export Movie, click on that. Decide where I want to save my film. I'm happy just to save it onto the desktop. I want to give it a name. I'm happy to call it Hollywood. And I want to make sure that the format is QuickTime. Alright. If you're using a PC, this will say QuickTime and in brackets .mov. I'm going to save that. You'll get this QuickTime export settings window. I'm going to open up QuickTime settings, and I just want to make sure that this settings is MPEG 4 video. It'll just create a file which is just a bit easier to be played over different platforms. Want to make sure it's the best quality. Click OK. Click OK. Click Export, and that'll export my Flash file as a movie to the desktop. Okay, thanks for watching. Good luck with your animation.